Rob, good to see you again.
Hey, Jim. Good to see you. How's everything?
Everything's going good.
Good.
I want to ask you about, let's call it the 20,000 foot view of international moving, the whole process as it stands now in 2024. I know things change over time. Can we start just today by talking about the process in general, and then maybe we'll look at some specifics about it? How does it get started? Where would we start?
You mean like the overall process of, someone's moving from the United States to insert country here? Sort of what are the steps, assuming door to door? Is that
Yeah,
kind of
I think a good place to start is we see these trucks on the road. SDC International Shipping is a household moving company, so I imagine some households are 2 to 3 bedrooms, some are located in apartments. I know that these shipping containers sometimes can be brought into a driveway, everything loaded live right there, then it goes to the port, where other times you can't get access easy. Can you let's start right there. How does that work?
Well, so the overall process is, let's assume we're talking about door to door service, which is primarily what we do. We are only moving people internationally. That's what we do. Someone's moving from Dallas to, Philadelphia, that's not us. But if they're moving to Paris or Lisbon or Madrid or Sydney, Australia, that is us. And so basically, the overall 20,000 foot view is, there's a process of, providing a quotation, understanding what the needs are of the client. So how much volume, how much space is going to be occupied? Is this an LCL or less than container slash shared container load? Or is this an exclusive container where the client's going to need a 20-foot container or a 40-foot container or multiple containers? So it's important to understand the volume. Any other special needs, like if it's, we're talking about a big art collection, things that require some additional attention, things that's really important. So then once that's done and the client says, I trust you guys and your reviews are great and the price is good, then, we're going to go ahead and schedule the packing and wrapping and protecting and prepping, and then the ultimate pickup day, where things actually leave the point of origin. And like you mentioned, there are a couple of ways of doing that. It can be, a live load where we're able to pull a container right to the home and load it right there. Sometimes we can't do that. And, we're going to have to utilize our proper moving trucks, load those and take those back and then load into a container later on. But at some point, the goods have to get into a container, whether it's shared container or an exclusive container. That container is then also going to have to be taken to the port or the terminal and loaded it's got to get on the boat, obviously. So that has to happen. So we're going to have to get a booking that matches when we get the container, the booking has to be right there afterwards. You don't want to have things sitting in a container for too long. There's storage. So then it gets on the boat ships and heads to the destination. At that point, our team overseas, whether again, it be, Paris or Madrid or Sydney, they're going to get involved now. So we have an extra person involved. If there's any paperwork or documents that are necessary, because we're going to be clearing customs for our clients as well, or assisting in the customs clearance process.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's no duties that are, everything's, taken care of, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. The ocean vessel then would get to the destination port of entry. Customs is cleared. And then our team overseas would then be responsible for gathering everything and bringing it to the destination, the door at the client's new place. So
Right.
that's the overall process for ocean. Over land, which would include Canada and Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
similar idea, but very rarely would we use an ocean vessel to, do the transport. It's typically going to be over road, but it's the same idea. Everything has to be, all the steps are the same. There just isn't a boat. Instead of a boat, there's a proper, air equipped shock absorbing that's going to be going over the road for longer distances and taken across the border, clear customs, and delivered to the client's door, whether it be in Toronto or British Columbia or Edmonton or somewhere in Mexico. So that's an overview of the whole process. Some people think
Right.
that, when I'm talking to clients, I think that they get the feeling that it's just a simplistic thing where You come, you pick up, and you take it there and drop it off. It's there's a lot of distinct elements involved.
So if we go back to let's talk about move day just for a moment. Doing the complete job yourself, you're doing the packing, the labeling, and so when it goes to customs, you have all of that documentation already in place. How does that change if the person decides, well, I want to pack my own boxes or 50% of my own boxes? What happens then?
Well, it's a similar idea. We can do the professional packing and inventory list, and in that situation, it's a little more streamlined on our end. And in terms of clearing customs, we've got everything done. Some of our clients will opt to do some of their own packing. When I say packing, I'm talking about boxes now.
Boxes.
Not to include metal and wood furniture. That's taken care of by us automatically in the appropriate way. But for, boxes, dishes, shoes, books, things of that nature, we can pack, or our clients can pack themselves. And they'll save some money. Obviously, we're experiencing, we're utilizing less labor in that situation and less materials because the client's going to provide their own boxes, their own tape. However, there are a couple downsides for a client that wants to pack their own boxes.
Like insurance, right?
There's pros, and that's cost. And there are cons, and that is some elements. Number one is a box that a client has packed themselves, PBO, packed by owner, is not eligible for full coverage insurance because that's insurance regulation. They don't know what is in the box, how it was packed. If there's bowling ball next to some fine china, they don't know. So it's not eligible. There are workarounds for that. Boxes can be left open. We can inspect, but there's a fee for that. So you might as well just let us pack those items.
Right.
The other downside of packing your own items is, basically, you want to make sure it's done the right way. And also, a lot of clients don't realize this, and I try to make it very clear to them that when you think of packing your boxes, you think of, well, this is my kitchen, my pots and my pans and my flatware and my china and my silverware, books, shoes, clothes, knickknacks. Boxes include items like your television sets, your TVs, your framed wall art. Those should go in a box, generally speaking. Some clients say, no, I'm just going to wrap them with bubble wrap. They're not worth that much. That's fine. That's fine if they want to handle it that way. But if it's nice art, it should go in a box, a proper mirror or picture box, so it's really protected. And clients don't think about that. Other things that come into play, they're lamps. You can't just throw a lamp, and ship it. You really shouldn't. That's not best practice, and we wouldn't do it that way. I guess a client could say, no, I'm okay with it. This is how I want it done. Fine. But lamps, lamp shades, floor lamps, all of these things come into play. So I try to make that very clear to clients when they want to pack their own boxes and they're comfortable with everything in terms of the insurance element, all of that. Understand that other things that normally come into play with boxes is art, TVs, lamps, mattresses. You don't want to ever ship a mattress just raw. It needs to be bagged in a proper mattress bag, which is real heavy, like vinyl bagging. And really the best practice is to put it in a box. Mattresses are very expensive, especially a mattress that someone's shipping overseas. Typically, that's an expensive mattress. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. They'd get a new mattress.
Yeah.
So things come into play, and I don't like, we kind of pride ourselves here. We don't want surprise gotcha charges. We don't want that. Some companies don't really care because they've already got the stuff, and maybe they don't really care potentially. But so I make it real clear that just because you're packing the boxes and we get there and you've got 37 pieces of art and you want them in boxes because you want them protected and you haven't boxed them, that needs to be boxed. And so therefore you should have maybe taken full packing service, because now we're going to have to charge you either for full packing service or per box.
Yeah.
TVs, mattress bags, or mattress boxes, those types of things come into play.
Then do the boxes get put on a pallet and then wrapped again so they don't shift, or do they go?
Well, if it's a palletization shipment, shared container. So if it's a shared container, I'm talking ocean now.
Yeah.
Yes, there are, three different ways to ship. One is, of course, exclusive container. The other is really the best practice for LCL, less than container load, where it's a shared container, is to put everything into what we call lift vans. Those are basically crates. So
Hmm.
everything's going into a crate. The third, the lowest, I guess, is a way to look at it, way of shipping for a shared container is to just take everything, put it on a pallet or pallets, and then they're protected on the corners and wrapped with shrink wrap so that everything's together. But yes, that's how that would be. And if a pictures and lamps aren't in boxes and that method
Hmm.
is utilized, I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
It's not fantastic.
Now, there's different rules, of course, depending on where you're going. Things are done differently. Just can you do a brief overview of that? Like maybe the difference between Spain, Portugal, the UK, Mexico. Is there anything that people should know about the what's allowed and what's not allowed?
In terms of packing and shipping items, I mean, it's pretty somewhat standard. I mean, I don't know if you're asking like there are prohibited items for certain countries. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. You go into some of the Middle East countries, you're not going to bring certain things. They're not certainly not going to bring any, you're not going to ship to Saudi Arabia, a whole bunch of things that depict Christianity too much or
Mhm.
Judaism. They aren't going to be cool with that. A lot
Now
of the
that stuff's caught in the on this end, right? In other words, maybe I'm just assuming, oh, I have this big Bible collection I'm going to bring to, one of
Yeah,
these Saudi countries.
Saudi. Yeah, no,
So, but I don't know that that's a no-no for there, right? When it
yeah.
comes to
Well,
how to,
every country has their own peculiarities. Well,
yeah,
some are just very standard. Like pretty much anything in the EU, pretty consistent. Maybe alcohol, how much you can bring in duty free, something small like that, but it's going to be pretty consistent. But some countries have, different rules and regulations on certain things. When you get into religious items, some countries have that. You can't bring a Buddha or any depiction of Buddha into
mm,
like Indonesia. A lot of the countries down there, you can't do that. There's little peculiarities, and that's where when we work with clients, it's important. Our relocation specialists are well versed in every country, and we have the resources at our fingertips to be able to discuss one at a time. If someone's moving to insert
right.
country here, here is the situation. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. We'll send that information over as well. So
That
general guidelines.
so that generally, I guess you would say then that SDC is set up so that the customer, the client, is focusing on the other things while
Yes.
all of the issues that go with this that we're talking about here, you guys are going to take care of, right? That's how it's.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, someone's moving from, somewhere in the United States, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami, Dallas,
Yeah,
and they're moving overseas. It's a big step, and then typically it's a permanent step, and that's the whole idea.
yeah,
And a lot of gears in that watch, and
yeah.
so we try to take this one and handle it, just take it off their plate. I mean, there's
I
the good
imagine if
things that they have to engage in, but we take this one off their plate.
Yeah, I imagine if you try to do it yourself and you're out of the system,
Yeah.
right? Like SDC has a system, you work with the same people. If you try to just do it yourself, you're going to have to face a whole lot of hassles that you wouldn't face,
That's right.
because you work with the same people, the same customs, all of that. It's a nice system that's set up to make it smooth.
That's right. I mean, somebody wants to remodel their kitchen. They don't have to call a plumber and a cabinet guy and a tile guy and a
Yeah,
countertop guy, or they don't have to.
yeah,
But it's better to hire the contractor to just handle those things, or even if it's just a plumbing job, hire the plumber. You're worrying about
yeah,
everything else that's going on in life. Hire the expert, and that's where we come into play.
yeah. Well, Rob, that's great information. We'll put your number up there on the screen. So,
Great.
yeah, I know things change over time. We're in 2024 now. And yeah, little things change here and there, but you guys keep on top of all of that. And that's a nice thing about being able to talk to somebody live as opposed to reading a blog article or something that might be 3 years old and the
Right.
information is no longer relevant to what's going
Yeah,
on right now.
that's true. That's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I read an article that said that I know France has been a destination for Americans for a while now, but they're
Mhm.
going to make it very difficult to get in there. I think in 2025, there's all
Yeah.
types of new criteria, more red tape to go through to be able to relocate to France. So,
Yeah.
it,
Well, pe people, this is that time that we've talked about for, decades, that at some point all the baby boomers are going to retire.
yeah,
And so this is happening now, and it has been happening. And, with the real estate appreciation the way it's been, people are retiring and they've got all this, untapped, assets
yeah,
that they put to cash. And, so a lot of people are opting to go different places. And that's
yeah,
absolutely true. Yeah.
yeah. All right, Rob. Well, again, we'll put your number on the screen.
Great.
And what else is going on? You have a busy rest of the day as always.
Oh yeah, yeah, super busy, but no, just lots of things to get done. And I've got today's Thursday, so probably be working into the weekend a little bit, which is a good
Yeah.
thing. It's always good to get things done and stay on top of things.
I love the background. I'm looking at those containers on the boats. I'm wondering
Oh yeah.
how many containers go on the average boat. I'm not throwing that question out there, but I imagine it's quite a few.
Yeah, I was just looking at the world's largest, just went online not too long ago, and I want to say it's Maersk. I want to say the shipping container capacity, assuming 20-foot containers, which is not always right, but I think it held 45,000 20-foot
Wow.
containers, I want to say, something in that range. Huge. I mean, the logistics involved with international shipping, and not just what we do, just the overall flow, it's the supply chain globally is just mind-boggling. I mean, it really is so complex how that's all done and how they have to load certain containers because the first port that they're going to go to is, Taipei.
Yeah.
And so you can't have containers behind or under the containers, on top of the Taipei containers. So everything has to be staged,
Yeah.
loaded, and there are massive computer, software that
Yeah.
handles all of this globally and just knows absolutely what's going on. And
Just out
they
of
even time it,
curiosity.
the speed of the ship, you know.
Wow. And
So
the
15 years
logistics.
ago, these boats would go full bore.
Yeah.
That's not right. I mean, it's like when you get on the freeway in a lot of places in the country, when you're entering a freeway, they got the stoplight because they
Yeah.
want to stage it. Well, mathematics and the computers have decided that that is the most efficient way to do it. So you've got these shipping vessels that can go 20 knots and they'll slow down to 13 or 9 because they need to in order to speed everything up. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Kind of like a busy airport, but in the water.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's really
Obviously, those containers aren't all filled with people's household goods,
no,
I mean,
very, very tiny fraction.
yeah. So
Unfortunately,
what is the rest? Like businesses sending like merchandise and stuff like
you
that?
name it, you name it.
Yeah.
Anything and everything from coffee mugs to carpet to shoes to hairbrushes. I mean, anything and everything that you've got in your house that wasn't manufactured here, which nowadays is almost nothing. Yeah, yeah, it's this global supply chain, and we're making things and sending it there. And now you got to think about the containers themselves. There has to be a flow of containers. Just because the
Yeah.
boat's here, what if there are no containers here? Because those had to come back in some fashion. And that's what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
The containers got messed up. So you couldn't know the container flow, like your circulatory system, everything's got to continue to flow. And that broke down during COVID. It's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. We're getting that's above my pay grade, and we're getting into the weeds, but it's interesting for sure.
Yeah. 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 Who makes the containers? The Chinese? Us? Who
Who
does that?
makes
Or
the
everybody?
containers?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know who makes those containers.
Yeah. Just out of
Um,
curiosity, I wanted to know how much one would cost.
oh, they're cheap.
So I
I
looked
mean,
it
you
up
get
based
used
on,
ones for cheap. Yeah.
yeah, used ones are going for around $1,800, 1,800 for 20-foot container used in
Used, you can
Florida.
find it for that. Yeah, you can find it for that. Used, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And they're
Yeah.
so useful. I always look at these things. I'm like, for many years, I think, what can I do with these things? And of course, people are doing that. They're building housing,
Houses.
offices. I mean, I always thought, boy, I could build an office park.
Yeah.
It was just shipping containers, it'd be
Yeah,
so neat.
that would solve a lot of problems. I mean, at least somebody would have a place to stay. I mean, not necessarily electricity and water and set up a whole town made out of containers, shipping containers. Although it is possible to do it, it would cost less than building a home.
Right. I mean, yeah, then you got to get into plumbing, which might be a little bit tricky, but I don't know. And I think they might tend to get a little warm if the power goes out. A shipping container might get kind of hot. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like being locked in the car. But overall, they're pretty neat. And think about it, and where you are in Florida, the big nightmare, which is happening now, is, oh gosh, it's hurricane season.
Yeah.
Is this going to blow my house down? Well, if you've got a shipping container, no,
Yeah.
it's not. If you've got like a triple wide shipping container situation,
Yeah.
no, it's not. It's absolutely not. Even a tree falls on it. So,
Yeah. See, they have the cement on the corners and they
yeah,
drill down into and they anchor it and weld it in
bonds.
there. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
not going unless you're an earthquake. So you're not
not in
going
Florida,
anywhere.
but even an earthquake. The
Yeah.
idea in California here is, the earthquake's your house is gonna fall down.
Yeah.
The structure is going to be compromised and it's going to have to be raised at some point anyway. Wood holds up better. We're really getting off topic now, aren't we? Then concrete just falls down.
Yeah.
But shipping containers, they're
Yeah.
not going anywhere. Anyway,
As long as we're in the weeds, this will be a longer episode.
yeah.
um, the port of Los Angeles and the port in San Francisco, those are two very commonly used ports, right, for SDC?
Okay, so down south in Southern California, you have the port of Long Beach and the port of Los Angeles. They're
Okay.
technically separate. They're distinct ports.
Yeah.
However, they utilize a lot of common infrastructure because they're right by each other.
Yeah.
One's LA County, 33% of all goods that come into the United States
Yeah.
come through those ports collectively, LA and Long Beach.
Yeah.
33%. Now, in Northern California, you have San Francisco and you have Oakland. Oakland's much bigger.
Yeah.
So we ship full containers out of Oakland. Everyone does. And then San Francisco's smaller port. So we'll do our shared containers, LCL type stuff, usually out of San Francisco. Yeah.
Moving from any of these areas in California, then it's kind of see it feels like, as I'm looking at it from a distance, the whole process is a little more streamlined just due to the location that you're pretty close already.
Well, yeah. I mean, anyone moving from California, it's pretty good. No, that said,
Yeah.
moving, we're shipping people to Europe, every day, right?
Yeah.
Moving to Europe, and so it's got to go through the Panama Canal. So
Right.
there is that piece. We're not. It just wouldn't make sense to truck anything to Houston and ship
Yeah.
that way because it just introduces cost, it introduces time, and it introduces things over the road and handling, touching things too many times. So we ship it from here to Europe. It's easier to ship it to Asia, of course, or to
Yeah.
Australia from here. But yeah,
All right, Ron. Well, thanks for all of that information. I'll catch up with you next week then.
sounds good. I'll be here.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Nice to see you, Jim. You
All
too.
right. Bye
All right,
bye.
so.